Even though you just told me you won't.
Okay, sure. So, so let's start with this question, guys. So why kill startups and tech companies in the Philippines?
We didn't leave you to want to start?
Why don't we go from left to right? Well, first off, I guess I want to take the question from a different angle. Why not? What's preventing us from actually doing business here in the Philippines? You have, here in the Philippines, you've got quite an active group, both young and old, of people deciding to go down the startup life. Either for reasons of income augmentation or because they really do want to disrupt the current status quo of the way things are done, the way things are run, because they want to see something better. So whether it's for those reasons or another, we do have quite a number of the key elements and key parts of the ecosystem in place. What we've noticed over the years in doing business in Hybridigm, working primarily in the biotech and life science sector, which I found when I found out where exactly this particular session was going to be, it said design and gaming. I was like, wow, how are we a gaming session? But in a way, you could also twist it. We are sort of designers of an ecosystem, of a sector, through all the consulting that we've done over the years. And what we've noticed is, while the factors in the country are very much like the Philippines, they're islands of success. We do have them, we do have the key personnel, we do have the key expertise, even the sources of capacity building and training and mining for ideas. What we do not have, sadly, and it's sad to see, especially since we're a growing economy, what we do not have are those consistent and constant lines of collaborative behavior, of collaboration between all the parties, whether it's corporations, academia, government, even the entrepreneurs. So we have a lot to do in building those lines, but I don't think that should hamper any interested party in building a business, especially a tech startup business in the Philippines. Come on, you've got your artists in Pixar who are Filipino. And they've been in Disney, they've been in various gaming industries, in various internet companies. So we do have the capacity for it. I pass this off to the next one.
Okay, I'll take it next one. I don't represent the startup, I represent USAID-STRIDE. So we're working with the innovation ecosystem. So I'll just talk from where my perspectives are on this. In a way, we are like, if you look at the history of the United States, we're like the Wild Wild West. We're a developing startup environment. There's more opportunities, I think, though it's not as easy. You would say Singapore is a great ecosystem for you. The US, sure. We have difficulties. I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. But I think that's where I think the opportunities can actually come into you. There are ways you can innovate around problems, and you might be the first to do it, and you already have an advantage. And I think if you were at the session this morning with David from Techstars, he was saying it's really a slow process in terms of an innovation ecosystem. He said like 1 degree at a time, like a big ship. We're still really turning even slower than that. I think that should not discourage you. I think we have to find ways around it, and it's going to be for the long haul. We can't say we'll be successful a year from now. It has to be a 5-year plan, 20-year plan, is what he said. If you play for that game, I think you'll get the reward soon enough. And we can talk about policies later on in the next few questions. But I think that's my initial idea. Obviously, I think we're saying about islands. Some sectors are probably easier than others. And we can talk about that later.
Right, so I'll also talk about this from my perspective. I actually work for a fintech, right, which is a company that provides financial services using technology. We are starting up here in the Philippines, right? And what we do actually is we empower small businesses. So my answer to that question, why start a tech business or another business here in the Philippines, is that there's never been a better time to do so. Okay, so has anybody here heard of like freelancing? Online outsourcing, right? Do you guys know that the Philippines is one of the top 5 global countries for online outsourcing? Right? Basically, almost 20% of the global online outsourcing workforce is based out of the Philippines. And it doesn't take a lot to get started. You know what it takes to get started? Go to a marketplace site, create an account, and all of a sudden, you are a service provider. You are an entrepreneur, and your clients are abroad. They're in the US, in Europe, in the UK. And what are you doing? You're providing services, know-how, content, whatever it is, to other small businesses globally, right? And for me, this has amazed me. I've seen people that have basically started working from home, earning a couple of $100 a month, to now earning $20, $30, $40,000 a month. I kid you not, right? And this is not maybe the startup, the way you guys are looking at it, which is you're building something, right? But these guys have runway, and they're parlaying it into building their own products or their own projects, right? Because they're leveraging on the strength that we in the Philippines have, right? What is it? Services, right? The BPO industry is expected to surpass $25 billion in revenue this year. What does that mean? We are providing $25 billion worth of services globally. Filipino skills, in terms of customer service, in terms of design, in terms of software programming, animation, game development. I mean, the list goes on and on, right? So now, it's never been a better time than now to be able to start something. I'm sure during the talks today, you've heard that, it all starts with the first step, right? It's never been a better time than now to start doing something.
In fact, just to enhance what the two gentlemen have said over here, if any of you have actually been able to access the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor, you can check the numbers for both the global report and specific to the Philippines report. That was, the latest was of 2014. You're going to see that a total early stage activity, basically everybody and anybody who's jumping onto either wanting to start a business or have little bits and pieces of starting a business, whether it's a formalized, incorporated business, or like what Miguel said here, which is basically individual activities, service activities. They're ranking that for the Philippines at 17.2%. That's a hell of a lot more combined than ASEAN and Oceania. That's about, 12 to 13% for them. So we are actually a very rapid growth area when it comes to entrepreneurial activity. However, what one would have to take into consideration is the fact that as high a number of businesses as we start, or of business activities as we start, that's just as high as well for the Philippines in terms of discontinuance. And the common reasons for that is poor profitability, and even the usual lack of access to capital. We can talk further about why these things are happening, but it also boils down to the fact that sadly, over the years, Filipinos in general have been more short-sighted. Really, we need to get through this day first, and then worry about the next day later on. But we tend to be so myopic to the point that we actually forget that we promised we were going to look for the long-term strategy.
I agree. It requires a little stretching of our vision to do that. So, with that, a few questions. I understand that, you guys were grouped together for a reason. And yeah, I think so. And this reason, of course, has to do with something, building startup in the Philippines. So, can I ask a brief description of the organization that you represent and what they can provide to the startup ecosystem in the Philippines and to those who would want to build their startups? I mean, I know that there are startups here in the audience. Are there any? Somewhere, yes. And I know that there are people who are here wanting to know if it's really good to build one. Okay, cool.
Well, I think I'm probably the more niche between the two of these guys because our sector primarily revolves around the biotech and life sciences. So, where do you think you'd find tech there? Quite honestly, we would need a lot of technology help from you guys. people tend to forget that while we drown ourselves in thinking about building the next Uber, the next Tesla building, all of these tech, they tend to forget the Philippines is an agricultural country. You run out of rice paddies, we're dead. We're going to run out of food. So we more and more we need guys who are in the tech industry, who are in the tech businesses, who actually just love high technology, to figure out how do we strengthen this essential sector of ours. Food security is a problem, and we need serious people who have the mindset to really get the job done. So just to answer his question about what is our background, the formal long-term version of that is we are a business innovations consulting firm with a parenthesis of primarily for biotech and life sciences. But over the years, we basically hook up with a lot of potential startups, key individuals in the government. We've actually had a couple of meetings years ago, from I think last year with USAID-STRIDE, members of the government, members of the corporate sector. So that's the long-winded version of it. The short-winded one, and probably the most memorable version for it, is we're tech pimps. In Tagalog, kami ang mga bugaw ng mga researcher at scientists. So that's really what we do. We tie them up with various people who could inch commercialization, tech commercialization for these researchers and scientists, whether it's by licensing from a big corporation or whether it's actually really going down the startup life. We help them understand what it takes to become a businessman or to understand the language of business, so that one, they know that they're not getting cheated by their partners. The number two really is it trains them to figure out that it's not just about the tech, but not just about the tech and the business, but there is a longer, far-reaching impact that they can do, and they have to constantly and consciously get themselves out of the day-to-day affairs and think, okay, what's the next step? What should I do? What should be the next initiatives and contingencies that I have to enact in order for me to really, in the motherhood statement of all, change the world and help build lives. So that's me.
Okay, so I'll take your theme from being the pimp to the... Okay. So if you're the pimp, we're actually the ones who produce the scientists and engineers. In other words, I represent the STRIDE program. It's a USAID initiative to help science and technology in the Philippines by helping scientists and researchers in Philippine universities. That's what we do. We actually give funding for R&D. So for a session maybe an hour ago, we actually give R&D support for Philippine universities to work with startups. It's been going on for the last 3 years. We might have another year of this kind of funding. So check out our website and look at that. But maybe to sort of go on to the next theme is that, okay, we're funding R&D, we're working with schools. And you mentioned about agri. When you think about tech and what startup should I be doing, try to solve first the local problems. And when they teach you how to pitch, start with a problem. There's many problems in the Philippines. So maybe why you want to work and do a startup in the country. We have many problems that are actually pretty simple. Agri, what to do with the waste? How can I make my process more efficient? I'm using a very rudimentary agri technology. And if somehow we can solve those little things, actually we've funded projects that have bloomed into bigger activities and actually been partly funded by the industry. So I think that's one way of looking at the Philippine startup scene, is that work on the smaller problems. In fact, these problems are also universal. The agri problems we solve here are applicable to India. And it can grow. And we were surprised how universal some of the projects we're doing now can actually be taken up by research projects in other countries.
Okay, so again, my name is Miguel Warren, and taking also from the perspective of solving a problem, right? Because I really do believe that if you are starting a business and you don't know what problem you're trying to solve, you need to start thinking again about your business, right? So I work for a company, and the problem that we are trying to solve is payment, right? Especially, and in particular, cross-border payments. We offer actually small businesses that have clients from abroad to be able to get paid easily and conveniently. the pain points that we're actually addressing are the traditional ways of receiving payments from banks, through bank wires, or, sometimes there are even instances where clients abroad are mailing checks, right? Believe it or not, that's how e-commerce started. eBay in the 1990s, when they were first listing items, the transaction is done there, but the payment is actually physically mailed by check, right? You can already see all sorts of problems there, right? The check can get lost, can get stolen, can get damaged. And believe it or not also, right? I know people in the Philippines who earn money from AdSense, right? Google AdSense. If you're a blogger, you're earning money on AdSense. You get checks, right? It boggles the mind for me. It really does bother me, right? We solve these problems. We can actually offer you a virtual bank account in the US. You can take this bank account, you can give it to AdSense, and then they can pay you into that account, and then we transfer the money from that account to you in the Philippines, either to your bank or through an ATM or debit card that you can use in a machine or online or swipe in a store, right? So payments really are a pain point, especially of emerging businesses, whether it's e-commerce related or services related. So if anybody in the audience has international clients and have challenges collecting payments from abroad, please do see me. I would be happy to help you.
It's just sort of dawned on me. Here's an example of how it is like in agri, when you think about combining science, technology to actually create a far-reaching impact for society. One of our friends and partners in the University of San Carlos, this is Dr. Evelyn Tabuana. She actually, along with the university, put up the first, and I think I'm fairly correct with this. This is the first mango waste biorefinery in the world. So they actually have a basketball court sized facility there, which is somewhere just at the back of Mactan Airport. What do? Basically, every single little bit of mango, from the peel, the seed, after we've pretty much dried the mango or mango shaked every bit of that fruit, what do? They collect it and they process it. What happens to the processed stuff? Three things, 3 levels. You have your low, your medium, and your high. What happens with the low-level processing? You end up with biomass, stuff that you can send to boilers for energy, and feed husks for. This is basically feeding it back to the agri community. Feed husks for your pigs, for your cows. So the medium level, what is it? We actually can create mango body butter, aside from actual mango butter. That's for food. You also have mango tea, and they've come up with a set of product via the Magic Milk Group, which is one of their officers. There's like mango coffee and a bunch of other stuff. The higher value items that come along with it are pectin and polyphenols. Pectin is what you will find in gummy bears, gummy tabs. Polyphenols are your antioxidants that if you go to Manila and you check healthy options, they will peg you at pretty much $600 to $1,000. I hope my figures are correct. $1,000 a pop, or a big canister of it. So you have a line of produce that's already, in terms of the business sense, they're absolutely profitable on any scale. But the other far-reaching section of that is their manpower were former scavengers of the garbage pits in Cebu. They basically scooped up around 50 of them, and they are now housed and paid a decent wage, decent clothing, everything, and they work there. So more than just the business, more than just worrying about the problems of how do we tandem everything, remember what they say, a problem is an opportunity. So welcome to the Philippines where there's so much problems, but reverse the coin, you have all the opportunity that you can find to fix, to solve, and to get the decent return that you need in order to be able to further save more people from these problems.
So I think I know why they put us in the same panel. So this example is actually it's a good example of a success story. Just to highlight it, that particular project, USAID actually funded it for $4 million last year to do the high value component. So see, they started from a project where let me do something with the waste seeds and help the scavengers. To like a few years, working with schools, science and technology, their investments, and now the school and now us. We're now looking into the very high value, the highest level, like was it $1,000 per kilo. And that's something we funded also. So see, from that effort, they actually it snowballed, right? So it's an inspiration.
In fact, just to add to that, what happened further down the line is people from Johannesburg actually noticed them, and they aside from actual purchase orders, I think they're looking to partner for the licensing of that actual tech. I don't know yet how the discussions are coming along for that one, but in just about a few years, they were noticed all the way across the ocean. And that's something for a Filipino academic institution to do. They've been able to get themselves on the map for that. So it's really about really figuring out, what do you want to solve? Are we going to be always trying to follow other people, being the next Uber, being the next this or that? It's great and all to follow that success, but are you going to be remembered for that? Are you going to actually have the longevity by living that Me Too life? Or do you want to actually take the risk and forge something? It's remember, the startup life isn't easy. I mean, I may not have started a business. I joined Hybridigm just last year, but I've known Maui for as long as I've known the company's been up. And just living the few years that I've been with them, there's a perverse delight that I get in waking up in my office. And falling asleep in there the next day and waking up, because I know that, every bit of blood, sweat, and tears that I put in there makes a difference. I see it with the way we've worked our asses off in touching policy, in really just trying to breathe a certain level of life to scientists, students that we have in the Asian Institute of Management, and they're realizing that, wow, we can actually dance the dance of the businessman. So it's a hard life, but if you're willing to do everything it takes to not fail, but also be prepared for those kinds of failures, it's more fulfilling than you can ever think.
I agree. So at this point, we're going to entertain questions from the audience. Do you have questions for our speakers? Like, if there are apprehensions about starting a business or doing a startup, because of some concerns you have there, you might want to ask them. Now's the time. Good time.
We should just need one question to sort of open the dam.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll ask a question from the panelists. But from maybe Hybridigm, I mean, how, in terms of life science, it's not something typically a startup would think of. They think of an app, a service. But how hard is it to get into this? Maybe not pure life science like biotechnology, but like what we're looking at. From what you've worked with, is it, what's the activation you need to do?
Well, I think in terms of, say, if we were trying to combine your typical tech guys with the sciencey laboratory guys, honestly, I don't think it's that difficult. It may seem like it's daunting because the very first question that might come to play is, what the hell are we going to talk about? But you'd be surprised that these guys are also looking to bring technology and research that they've carried and that they've made for years to the 21st century. And guys like you have that 21st century mindset. You guys have the understanding of what it is to work with an app, what it is to program with an app. And it's really about bouncing that idea back and forth with these scientists so that they can figure out, okay, what can this do, say, for example, for Dr. T's bio-waste refinery. I can't for the life of me give you a direct answer in terms of what that possible app could be, of what that possible tech innovation could be. Because the only way for you guys to figure these things out when you're linking up with these experts is to talk to them. I mean, take for example health. What is the evolution of tech for your health industry? You now have I don't know whether you've heard of it, but this is the RX box by a few professors and a few doctors from, and this is part of UP, if I'm not mistaken. This is a telehealth diagnostic system that is pretty much the size of a box, and it's made to address a problem that more and more Filipinos are dying and are shortly dead because they do not have access to the kinds of medical attention that we have. Most of these people who are in that number are in remote areas that you probably would have to trek through for hours and hours. And if you have a level of disease that is absolute terminal, you need those hours to live rather than to walk down a mountain trek. And by the time that you walk down there, you're dead. So that's a problem that's been solved by tech. And that is a life science problem. It's health, and the life sciences encompass a great number of areas. So there are so many things that you can do. It's not just about an app. It's about even creating maybe a system that these guys can work with that you have the knowledge of.
Yeah. Sure. Questions?
Hi, hello. This is a question for the guy from Hybridigm and for USAID, I guess. I am a patent analyst, so we do technology landscaping using patent data. So what happens, you look for scientists or you bridge the academy towards business, right? So what happens to the IP protection of these? I know that the IP in the Philippines isn't really okay, but I think types of innovation should be protected in the US or the other markets. So who owns it? Is it Hybridigm or the university?
Well, we've never really owned a piece of IP unless we actually created a set of cases that we run for our own training or for our own consultations with them. And in terms of IP that Hybridigm owns, we're in the process of making some of these. But in terms of those projects that you're referring to, it really depends on what these researchers want to achieve. So, say for example, maybe RB will correct me if I'm wrong for my definition of contract research, but from what I understand, a corporation contracts, for example, a researcher, do this project for me. I will pay the decent remuneration for this project, but since I've paid you to do the research, that's my IP. So that's an example of how IP bounces back and forth from these guys. But it depends on the deals and the terms and conditions that you would want to achieve or to construct with these various parties. It doesn't necessarily mean that though the researcher started this, that it may end up being completely his IP. Maybe a derivative belongs to the other party. So that's where the human factor comes in. I mean, I do recall what Maui would always talk about, that these things are more of a business decision. IP protection of those types, patents, trademarks, they're more of a business decision than an automatic legal one, because you have to remember that all of these protections, they cost money. And they cost money not just to enact, but also to maintain. So you have to figure out, especially in your business strategy, am I going to patent in the States? Am I going to patent here? Am I going to trademark there? So, and when you've decided on these things, that's when your other answer, I think, would come into play. Is like, what kind of deal and what kind of terms and conditions would I be making with my various partners, so that one, I can protect my IP enough that it's the ownership is still there, but it doesn't impede on the development of the product or the service or the model that you wish to proliferate.
One last question, yes.
I think.
Oh, okay.
I'll just quickly answer that point. So that's a tough question for IP. If it's commissioned work, it has to be owned by the idea maker. If the school does the research, they should